Here we go. It's the ML Sports Platter, talking some Buffalo Bills football with one of my favorites through the years. Go back a long time now with this guy, Adam Benigni, the anchor, the EP Sports Talk. You can catch him, of course, on the Monday night show in Western New York. He is, of course, way more accomplished on the resume side than me. Look at that, an Emmy and Murrow winner as well. Adam, it's been way too long. Welcome to the show, brought to you by Batavia Downs Gaming, Liverpool Physical Therapy, and Burn Dairy, my man. It's been so long. How are you?
Mike, it is so good to see you and be on with you. And this goes as far back as, my days at WSTM in Syracuse, coming out of the university there in 91 and spending the better part of between 5 and 6 years at STM. And I love talking to folks in central New York because that's where it really all started for me, covering those really pretty good SU football and basketball teams, the 96 national championship, the loss to Kentucky. And those are great memories, and it's a great community. But it's Bills country. It was back then in the early 90s during the Super Bowl era. Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, Bruce Smith, Thurman, all those guys. And now it's kind of come full circle again because they haven't made a Super Bowl yet, but this is a very legitimate contending team and has been for a while over here. This might be the best version of it, believe it or not. And so, it is it's full circle and great to be on with you.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember watching you on TV as a kid, and 96 was the Cuses in the house. Oh my God. And John Wallace. And then fast forwarding to my Bonaventure days, I saw you in Buffalo all the time with my internship. And man, it's so great really to have you. It's been too long, to be honest with you. And you can catch Adam and Sal, by the way, on the BLEAV Podcast Network, hosting their amazing show on the Bills as well. So make sure you download and subscribe to that, the Bills podcast on the BLEAV Network, where I am as well. 9-2 for this Bills team as we head into this Sunday nighter against a banged up Niners team. Adam, I got to tell you, preseason, 9-2, really? I mean, this is beyond, right? Beyond what I think any one person could have even imagined. I know they're not perfect, but 9-2.
Yeah, I was one of those. I mean, it was very clear to me coming off the playoff loss to the Chiefs last year and then making the decision to move on from Stephon Diggs and where they were relative to the salary cap. I mean, Bill Polian made this point on our Monday night show on Channel 2. We had him on as a guest as they were going through this process. They were transitioning the roster, and every team that is paying a franchise quarterback like Josh Allen clearly is goes through this look at the Chiefs. I mean, they moved away. They dealt Tyreek Hill and retooled things, and they won Super Bowls, plural, in the process of doing it. It was obvious the Bills were transitioning the roster, getting younger, getting the cap in order. And most people thought, to your point, that this was going to be kind of a transition year, that they would contend for a division title, but then really have the cap space to add pieces in 25 and 26 and really take another run at it in the back half of Josh Allen's career. Well, as it turns out, I mean, they've answered so many of the questions that we all had about them in the preseason, and the youth has developed, and having to deal with the injuries, all of a sudden now that depth is performing at levels that I think have exceeded a lot of expectations, right? And you never really know with young talent how quickly it's going to develop when it's given the opportunity. And I just think it's a credit to, you talk coaching, and you can criticize Sean McDermott for a lot of his in-game decisions, but the system and the culture that they have constructed over here, what happens in those meeting rooms in terms of not only having talented youth, but prepared youth, where when they need to step in, they're studied up, they're prepared, the coordinators, all of those things, the messaging's been right, and they can step in, and there isn't as much of maybe a drop-off that you might expect and might see with other teams and with other organizations. That's the benefit of all the cliches we've heard McDermott talk about, culture and process and all of those things. That, to me, in real terms, is how it comes to fruition, and it adds up to a 9-2 record this year.
No doubt. And the Patriots were a dynasty. They won 6, went to 9, and they went through 8, 9 different flavors of ice cream during their time. They had the Randy Moss offensive team. They had defense in the beginning. I mean, they went through their transition as well. The Bills a couple weeks ago, look, they win against Kansas City at home. It was electric. It was amazing. It was a great win. Allen had one of the great plays of his career. McDermott said, no, we're going for it. We're not going to give Mahomes a chance. Carolina just found out how that was this past weekend. Yet, it's fair to say, but the Chiefs, probably home field still goes through them. It's going to take probably a lot of efforts to jump them at this point, and January looms for the Bills. So both can be true at the same time. Great win, but January. Where do you land on this Chiefs-Bills thing? Why will it be different this time around if they play?
That's a good question. We all know the history, right? We know what happens for the Bills during the regular season, right? Versus what happens in the postseason against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the biggest factor is probably the Bills have the horsepower to overtake them.
For sure.
They can get the number 1 seed, and they have that head to head now. Look, I think the biggest thing that swings in Buffalo's favor now is look at the fact they're about to get significantly healthier. I mean, you think about that playoff loss and who they had out of the lineup, right?
Bernard and
I remember Bernard. Vic Carucci and I had done our pregame takes for Channel 2 down kind of in the media room there by the tunnel. And I was walking back up as a number of Bills were coming out, the players and staff for the pregame warmups at that time. And a longtime source of mine was walking down the tunnel toward the field, and we said hello, wished each other well, and he leaned in and kind of whispered in my ear. He goes, "That Bernard injury is a big one."
Yeah.
Right. So going into that game, this is my point. From a matchup X's and O's standpoint, Mike, they knew that they were going to have issues, dealing with Kansas City that night. As it turns out, it's a game they still should have won, but that was then, this is now. You asked me why it might be different. Look at the people who are set to come back into the lineup potentially at some point here. I mean, you're going to get a Keon Coleman back, possibly Sunday night. You're going to get Dalton Kincaid back. We'll find out more about this on Wednesday. There were no Zooms yesterday with Sean McDermott, right? Spencer Brown. And of course, the big one, Matt Milano. He's ready to step back into the lineup. Now, when that happens remains to be seen, and how that happens remains to be seen, right? But finally, you're going to get a guy that you kind of transition him in, kind of a pitch count type control, the snap count and that sort of a thing, kind of as they've done with Von Miller, who also should be mentioned as part of this discussion after the suspension. There was a silver lining to that. So my point is, you're going to get key players back healthy as you head to the postseason. So it's not like an attrition situation. And I think if you inject those players and they've worked their way back up into football shape and are in the lineup, and then you've got to deal with the Chiefs again, I would suggest to you there's a better chance that the pendulum swings the other way in Buffalo's favor. That's a very positive trend that's happening for this team as they look toward the stretch run of the regular season. We'll see what else. Of course, a lot can happen in 6 games, right? We'll see who else. There'll be another injury or two, I'm sure, and that sort of a thing. But I like the way things are trending on that front, and that's the biggest indicator to me, beyond the depth and the balance and everything else that this team has shown, kind of the intangibles that suggest to me that if they're certainly the 1 or even the 2 seed, they are going to be a tremendously difficult out in the postseason.
He's on X at Adam Benigni. Go follow him. Sports Talk Live, the longtime Buffalo Bills insider here on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Stanley Law Offices and Welch & Company Jewelers, and the highlighted sponsors that you see there. And, of course, you can get him and Sal Marana on the Bills podcast for the BLEAV Podcast Network as well. I got a couple more quick ones for you, Adam. Josh Allen is obviously playing at an MVP level, and people have talked throughout. He's matured. He does this. He does that. He takes the underneath stuff. It's a different, it's a different roster of weapons. No more Diggs, no more Davis. On and on it goes. He's not turning the ball over as much. Take what the defense gives you. You hear all of it. And you also hear that because of the ground game and Joe Brady and this different offense, that the big ball isn't there as much anymore. But you don't really have to go 80 yards to go downfield. You don't have to go, 60 yards to go downfield and throw a big bomb, right? You can throw a ball 20 yards and get 15, 20 after the catch, and it's still a big play technically. Do you think that the Bills have some things in their back pocket while everybody's talking about they're limiting the big play, that they're going to unleash that at some point down the line here where Allen's going to throw the big ball to go with this stuff? And if that happens to work and these guys can actually catch the ball compared to Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis the last couple of years, holy cow.
I think that passing game is still evolving. And that's an interesting study and really a credit to Brandon Beane and his staff for recognizing, okay, we had, everybody eats, that mantra coming out of training camp, right? And that's the post Stephon Diggs mantra. Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, myself, Vic Carucci, Sal, we're all very concerned about the explosiveness of that passing game. And I think it was pretty obvious to them early in the regular season that they didn't have enough to execute what you just outlined, right? So they go out and they trade for Amari Cooper, right? And they recognized they had an issue. They went out, phenomenal deal financially. You get the guy for $800,000. He fits into your locker room and he fits into your salary cap, right? And while his numbers haven't, when he's been in there, by the way, because he's been dealing with the wrist injury, right? His numbers haven't jumped off the stat sheet, but I think if you've watched this team, you see the difference that his presence makes. The fact that they do have to account for the deep ball and a guy that can take the top off a defense, for example. And then that serves to open things up. It was certainly happening before Keon Coleman got hurt. You saw his game was already kind of catching fire, and then the Cooper factor, that's what I would call it. All of a sudden, it allows others. Shakir's a perfect example of this, right? Kincaid, others to really fill roles in that passing game more suited to their specific skills. So everything kind of made sense and complemented each other. And it's when Cooper's even in there. You saw it against Kansas City, couple of early catches, right? But you saw the difference that just his presence made. That's been my point, and I think it's been obvious when you really look at how this offense is operated and how this passing game is evolving when Cooper is in there. I think the big game from him is still to come. That could come as you head down the stretch of the regular season and into the postseason. I mean, he's someone who garners an awful lot of respect from opposing defensive coordinators. So, yeah, I do think they'll have that horsepower. And when you combine it with how the balance of how they're able to run the football, which, of course, as the weather worsens, I think that makes them extraordinarily difficult and then to deal with. And then you mentioned it at the start of your point. This is the most refined version of Josh Allen that we have seen. There aren't statistically the numbers aren't what they have been in the past, for example. But having those crazy, wild passing statistical games, that doesn't always work. That doesn't more of the complete picture, balance on offense, complementary football with defense. That's what can win championships. So I like all of the factors, how they're kind of blending together. And I do think that passing game, there's another gear with everyone healthy and in there on a consistent basis. They can hit that next year as they head down the stretch of the regular season and into the postseason. I'm pretty optimistic about that, assuming they all stay healthy.
All right, non-football to close in the last minute or so. So much respect for you and the work that you do for Roswell, where you can donate at rideforroswell.org. And also, you're a 5-time rescue dog guy, just an amazing charitable dude. And I've always loved that side of you, Adam. And anything that you want to give you the platform, man. It's Thanksgiving week, right? We're grateful and thankful all the time. We got to think about how lucky we are, despite a lot of things that both you and I have gone through personally, which we talked about before we took air, but there's still that time to kind of sit back and go, all right, it's pretty good. Right. And so you've done a lot with both of those things I mentioned. So I just want to give you the floor on the last maybe 90 seconds on those things. And please donate to this great cause.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. It's the Ride for Roswell is something I've been involved with. This has been my 20th year. Roswell Park, one of the leading cancer centers in the United States, here in Buffalo. The Ride for Roswell is celebrating its 30th anniversary this coming June. And I think it's raised close to $80 million over those 30 years. They're looking to break $6 million this year. And just when you get to know not only the patients, but the researchers, the doctors. They're on the cusp of so much that is great, world-leading clinical trials that are coming in the next couple of years with some of this genetic and cell therapy stuff that's being fueled by the generosity of the community. For those who would be watching or listening to this from central New York, the Ride for Roswell is one of the largest single-day cycling events in the United States of America. 8,000 riders. They'll cross $6 million this year, celebrating the big anniversary. As I've said, registration starts in June, and it's a beautiful time of year to come over to Buffalo and Western New York with your family, all kinds of routes, options, and take part in something that is going to be, that's been really, really special for this community and made a huge difference. And we would welcome, a lot of people travel to it. It's just a wonderful, memorable day that's made a difference for so many, literally saving and extending lives with the money that people are raising. So it's just been terrific. We look forward to seeing anyone coming over from that area.
Super cool. Adam Benigni, been doing it for so long. Hey, thanks so much for coming on, man. We'll see what happens with the rest of this Bills season. Have a great holiday season, and we'll catch up again soon. Really appreciate it, man.
I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Absolutely. And this team seems to be giving us a reason to have discussions like this. So would look forward to coming on with you again. Maybe some postseason talk might be in order this year.
I'll do it. Thanks, Adam.
All right, Mike. Thank you.